Hi guys, John here, Common Sense Outdoors. So I would apologize first off for the fact that I'm going to be using 2 pages of notes and scribbles, but this is my attempt to get across my points, say exactly what I want to say, to explain best to you my thoughts. So if you see me looking down, I'm going to be trying to make sure to say what I mean to say so that it makes the most sense. So by the title you can tell what is wilderness survival. First, let's say that I'm not talking about urban survival. I'm not talking about zombies. I'm not talking about surviving a car crash or a tornado or a hurricane. If you go and look for the definition of survival, most definitions you're going to find are basically going to be the act of staying alive. So if you wanted to, you could say we survive every day just staying alive. But what I'm talking about is wilderness survival, where you're going to be in the wilderness situation. Wilderness being whatever terrain is in your area away from mass population. Whether that's forest, desert, swamps. The items needed to survive will vary depending on the person's knowledge, experience, and skills. What I mean by that is I could hand a small kit of items to somebody with the knowledge, experience, and skills to use them, and they would be able to survive with those items for however long they need be. I could hand the same kit to somebody without the experience and skills and knowledge. Say they grew up in a big city and they don't get out into the wilderness often, and that same kit of items probably won't be enough for that person. So realize when I say a small amount of items, I'm talking about whatever those items would be for that person, whatever items that person needs to do the same tasks. And terrain's going to play a role in that too. The same guy with the same kit and the same experience will have to have different items between Alaska and Arizona for different terrain and elements. So my definition of what is wilderness survival: living through an unplanned or unexpected short-term situation with a small amount of items. There's 3 things I just said there that I want to make key points: unplanned, short-term, and a small amount of items. Let me touch real quick on the short-term part, and the fact that if you've left good information with somebody about where you're going, when you're going to be back, if something is to happen to put you in a survival situation, from the point you don't return and search and rescue is notified, most cases 72 hours from the time search and rescue is notified, that situation is over. They'll find you and rescue you. So that's one aspect of the short term. The other aspect of the short term is if you are in a survival situation that extends past short term, you would be consistently improving your situation, bushcrafting the items you need, making it easier and easier, and at some point you'll reach a level that's no longer considered survival. You'll be self-sustaining. Excuse me. I have 5 examples of what I think will try to explain the difference between survival, wilderness survival, and not wilderness survival. And I'm going to start with the first one, which will probably raise the most eyebrows, and that's a bug out situation or a bug out bag. In my opinion, a bug out bag or a bug out situation isn't survival at all. There goes those eyebrows. Let me explain what I mean by that. If a person has the knowledge, skills, and experience, and they can put the right items into a bag and choose the right location and go to that location, they're going there to live off the land and self-sustain, and they have all the gear and the items they need to do so. So that's not really a matter of survival, it's more of a self-sustain. Now if you put yourself in that situation and you fail at it, either your knowledge, experience, and skills weren't where they needed to be, you didn't have the right items in your bag, the right gear, or you didn't pick the right location. Example 2, along the same lines, and having a pack full of gear. Let's say a person is going to go on a backpacking trip. It's going to be a 2-week trip. They're walking a trail along a river, whatever the case may be. Point A to point B, they're getting picked up in 2 weeks at the other end. They have all the gear and supplies they could need to make that trip in the pack on their back. Now if that trip somehow or another, miscalculated or whatever, takes them an extra day or two, it's just a delay. They still have all the items they need, doing what they were intending to do. They were just delayed in getting to where they were going. Now if halfway into that trip they slip on a rock and fall into a swift river, the only way to get out of that water and reach the bank is to lose your pack, slip out of your pack and swim to shore. Now they are limited to the small amount of items attached to their person, in their pockets, and they're in a survival situation because they no longer have that bag of gear, which prevents it from being a survival situation. Third example. If a person goes into the woods to get a Christmas tree, they get up in the mountains to find the perfect tree, they run into some snow, they either get stuck in the snow or they slide off the road into the ditch. If that person planned ahead of time and they have stuff in their vehicle such as blankets and cover, fire implements, food, water, maybe they have a high lift jack, a chainsaw, a come along, a chain, they have gear and items in their vehicle, they're delayed until they can get themselves out of the situation or somebody else comes along to help them out of the situation. But they have everything they need to sustain themselves without being considered a survival situation. If the same person goes to get that Christmas tree and the same situation happens and they didn't plan and put those items in their vehicle, and now they're limited to maybe a handsaw that they were going to cut the tree down with and some cordage to tie it on and whatever's in their pockets, now they're in a survival situation until they can get help, until somebody helps them. It becomes two completely different scenarios on whether or not you planned or prepared for it ahead of time and whether you have that gear and those items that you would need. Example number 4, and I'm going to share this story. It was recently shared with me by James. I hope you don't mind me using your story. Been communicating with somebody that we've met through YouTube here, and he told me a story about a friend of his in Alaska, which he had all the gear he could possibly need on his snowmobile. That snowmobile ended up going through ice, taking all of his gear with him, with it. Now you're definitely reduce to whatever items you have on you, on your person, small compact items to survive, because everything else is under the ice. Had that same situation been that you've got all that gear and implements strapped to your snow machine, and the snow machine stops running, gas line freezes or whatever, you have all that gear to sustain you until you can get that snow machine going again, or somebody comes and helps you. So you're delayed from getting to where you were going or back to where you were going by the situation until you can get that gas line defrosted, whatever the case may be. You're delayed. Now when that gear is gone and you're limited to a small amount of items you have on your person, you're surviving. You have to stay alive with what you have. Example number 5 is, somebody probably is saying, well, you haven't mentioned getting lost yet, because in all the first 4 examples you know exactly where you are. It's not a matter of being lost. So let's say a guy goes mushroom hunting, and that guy has a backpack on with whatever implements he might need: food, water, fire implements, cover, a cook kit, whatever he might need for an unexpected night stay in the woods, or 2 nights stay in the woods, or whatever it might be. He has that in a backpack on his back, and he gets turned around and lost. Because he has that backpack full of gear and implements, he's delayed until either he finds his way out or is rescued. Because he has that backpack full of gear, it's not a struggle to survive. He has everything he needs to live. He's just delayed to getting back out of there. If the same guy hops out of his truck and goes up the hill to a patch of mushrooms he knows is always there, and he's got a plastic bag to put them in and a pocket knife to cut them off with, and then once he gets up there, he's like, well, it looks like another patch up there, and he goes further, and then he gets there, well, that looks like that might be some more over there, or that's a good spot over there, and he goes further, and then he becomes lost, and all he has is what's in his pockets or on him. Now he's in a survival situation. He has to survive until rescue. I hope this is starting to make a little bit more sense about if you have the items, the large amount of items or gear, it isn't so much of a survival issue as if you have a small amount of items. So, with that being said, one might say, well, why not make sure to just have that pack of items with you all the time? If you always have that pack of items with you, you'll never get into a real survival situation where you have to struggle to survive. And that's true. You should have that gear with you and that pack with you. A survival kit, in my opinion, is the small amount of items or compact kit on your person for the situation, and there's many possibilities and situations where you could find yourself without your pack of gear. If you walk away from camp, you leave a lot of your gear at the camp. If you're bugged out and you're out foraging or exploring or looking for more resources, you're away from a lot of your gear. Survival kit comes in that small amount of items on your person in your compact kit, something completely different than your gear. Now, one more thing that I have to cover, because I know I've learned a lot with my time on YouTube about what kind of comments I'll get according to what I say. And I know one of you is, if you haven't already typed the comment, you're getting ready to. And that's, okay, I could have a pack of gear, but I fall and break my leg, and now I'm injured and I'm in a survival situation, even though I have the gear to sustain myself. Here's my thoughts on getting injured, and it's thrown around out there a lot by a lot of people, and I'm not discrediting that at all. First thing you have to do is go back to the fact that if you've left good information with somebody about where you are, when you're going to be back, you can count pretty heavily on the fact that 72 hours after search and rescue is notified, you're going to get some help if you've left good information with somebody. So even if you were to break a leg, you're hopefully going to be in a situation that's not going to be a long term. It's going to be a short term situation. But as far as injury, if you're bleeding, you do what you have to do to stop the bleeding. Whether that's wrap it, bandage it, suture it, quick clot it, whatever you have to do, you're going to stop that bleeding. Regardless of the bleeding injury, you're going to do your best with what you have. If you break an arm, you're going to wrap it, you're going to splint it, you're going to sling it, you're going to do whatever you have to do to protect that arm with what you have. If you break a leg, you're going to splint it, you're going to wrap it, you're going to find something suitable for a pair of crutches. Most of all, you're going to man up and you're going to stay alive. If I was in a situation in the woods and I broke a leg, am I just going to lay there and give up? Or am I going to do what I have to do? A good example of an injury causing a survival situation is the movie 127 Hours with James Franco. James Franco starred in it. It's a true story about Aaron Ralston, I think is how it's pronounced. Great example of him doing what he had to do to get himself out of the situation he was in. Not only was he injured, but he had to create more of an injury to save himself. If you're going to say, okay, well, you fall off a cliff and break your back and you can't even move, well, that'd be a good time to pray and hope you left good information about where you are and when you're going to be back. Alright guys, well, I hope that makes sense. I hope that gives you a little more insight to my thoughts and how I think. Let me know what you think about it. Leave me a comment, whether you agree with what I'm saying or not. I mean, everything is open for interpretation, but I wanted to cover this to try to give you more insight to my thoughts, and I hope I've explained it in a manner that makes sense. So thanks for watching. Appreciate your support, your subscriptions, your views, your likes, your comments, and we'll see you in the next video.